First off, I want to thank the grace of heaven and the virtues of the masters, the mercy of the grand predecessor, transmitting masters, lecturers, and everyone here today for the opportunity to continue talking about this 15 temple rules and regulations. Actually, I think, well, yeah, I'm going to simplify shorten the title a little bit. It's going to be 15 temple rules. That's it. All right, because rules and regulations sound kind of a little bit redundant. So just keep it. We'll just say 15 temple rules. Some people might say like disciplines. The 15 disciplines, but rules probably. Rules is good. I mean, rules because these are. Although sometimes we say they're guides or guiding principles, but it's more than just that. I mean, they are like we do have to follow them. Okay, it's they really are like rules. All right, now, okay, so last week we introduced it and then talked about the first one, respect the Buddha or respect Buddha. And so we did say that this is kind of the foundation for all the other rules, because this is really the essence, right? We're talking about the Buddha nature essence, right? So it is respecting the Buddha is respecting the Buddha nature essence, the essence. Okay, so and this would be the essence. If we really know how to follow this, practice this, in other words, if we can, this is really in essence revealing our Buddha nature, putting our Buddha nature, letting our Buddha nature be in charge. And so that's really what, respecting the Buddha. And everything kind of follows from that, right? So things like, this respecting life, right? That follows from this one, in that, Buddha is all about compassion, about life. The Buddha nature gives life. And so, therefore, if we respect the Buddha nature, then, it follows that we should not kill. Okay, so that's one example. Okay, and then you can say all other things are also will follow from this as well. All right. Okay. Now, so this is basically the essence, right? It's really internal, right? Holy Teacher says it's not about the external Buddhas, right? There are Buddhas out, we point to them as external Buddhas, but we really want to find and understand and follow and realize our internal Buddha. Right? That's the whole point. Okay, so that's also the Buddha nature study that we talk about. That's the ultimate. That's the highest level, really, of you can say the practice. Okay, we have to get to that level. When we can get to that level, then the chances of us not having to come back into the cycle of birth, death, and rebirth is much greater. Okay, so that's why it's very important. It's a foundation. All right. Okay, so the next one, the second rule, is follow qian-xian or遵前提後. Okay, so it means follow qian-xian and guide hou-xue. Okay, so I've used the terms qian-xian and hou-xue before. Okay, so but basically qian. Okay, so the second word here, zun means to follow. So qian, in this case, refers to qian-xian. Okay, it's actually qian-xian. The two characters together, which you can translate as worthies. Okay, so and we've talked about this before. Okay, and then hou, ti is like to. Well, in this case, this is ti-xie, okay, or ti-xi, to basically to support or guide. The hou meaning the hou-xue. Okay, so those are you can say the others who are following us, if you will. Okay, it's not exactly the case of seniority in terms of time. Okay, so this Holy Teacher will talk about that. All right. But we tend to think most people, I guess, tend to think that, oh, qian-xian, because of the words, right? It's like, oh, before. Qian means before or previous or former, right? And then xian is like worthy, you can say, or virtuous person. So those who come before us, right? So we tend to think that qian-xian means that, and so it refers to the Tao seniors, the transmitters, maybe lecturers, introducers, those who came before us in the Tao. But really, Holy Teacher says that it's any person of virtue and wisdom. All right. So they are consistent in speech and action, and they can be a role model or a leader. And they are so these, if anyone falls into these categories or can be characterized as such, then they can be qualified to be called a qian-xian, a worthy. Someone worthy of us following, okay, or emulating, right? So it has nothing to do with seniority or how long you've been anyone has been in the Tao or cultivating, okay? That's not necessarily the case, right? In fact, anyone can be a qian-xian, if only maybe in a more narrow sense, but we can always learn. In other words, we can always learn from others, okay, anyone. But these specifically, those people who serve as role models, okay? So such a person is worthy of our respect, and we would be willing and want to follow them, right? So otherwise, right, if we have insufficient virtue and wisdom, then we are just basically the blind leading the blind, okay? So if we don't have virtue, right, we don't have wisdom, then the people we are leading and guiding, obviously we don't have, who knows, our direction will not be correct, and we're going to lead those others in the wrong direction. So that's basically the blind leading the blind. So how can we lead sentient beings back to heaven, right? And how are we qualified to be called qian-xian? Okay, so all right, and then so hou-xue, then, okay, so any person, this is what Holy Teacher says, right? Any person learning, cultivating, and practicing Tao and has not yet left the cycle of rebirth is a hou-xue. So now that's a lot of people. Okay, so that's everyone basically. Well, okay, maybe with the exception of like the patriarchs, because they are like Buddhas reborn, and they they know their mission. Okay, so and obviously when they complete their mission, they transcend it. Now this transcending or leaving the cycle of rebirth, we tend to think of as happening after we die, right? Where do we go next? But actually, transcending the cycle of life and death or of rebirth can happen while we're alive. Actually, so if the patriarchs, they're enlightened, they've already transcended. All right, they've already transcended. Okay, because they're not going because they're basically living Buddhas. All right, so they're not going to create karma. They're not going to do the things that will cause them or have any attachments, things like that, where they will then fall into the cycle again. So they've already transcended actually. So this is really for most of the rest of us who are not enlightened, and we're still, we're not perfect. Okay, we're still trying to improve ourselves, and we're still making mistakes and creating karma, all that. And so anyone is a hou-xue. So this hou-xue actually includes like transmitters, even lecturers, transmitters, even maybe the more senior and elders in the Tao as well. Unless we're perfect, we're all considered hou-xue. Hou-xue means that we're still learning, right? We're still learning, we're still cultivating, we're still practicing. Okay, so that's it's very broad. So therefore, you can see that these two are not mutually exclusive, right? We can both be a qian-xian and also a hou-xue at the same time, right? But it's all relative, and it's relative to other people, right? So So hou-xue is not one who came later, right, or received the Tao later, or was promoted later, right? This is already in the final stages of the world, right? And the Holy Teacher does not want disciples to be attached to forms. Okay, so so Holy Teacher wants us to return to the reality, excuse me, of the Buddha nature. If we are still stuck on forms, how can we be liberated, transcend, and truly recognize the Buddha nature? As hou-xue, right, we still rely on the guidance of Buddhas, Bodhisattvas, and the truth in order to transform from the lost and confused sentient beings that we are to becoming enlightened. Okay, so realize that, yeah, we are all hou-xue, and we have to have that humble view. Okay, we have to be humble, right, and realize that, yeah, we're not. Don't think of ourselves as being qian-xian to other people, but we're still hou-xue. Okay, all right. So actually, to follow qian-xian, right, and to guide hou-xue is to emulate and learn from the saints and worthies, right, to respect and learn from the people of moral virtue, having moral virtue, right, to be humble and calm, to help sentient beings, right, to let those who have affinity with us to receive the support and guidance that they deserve, and truly to transcend into the saintly or the holy, and rise above the cycle of rebirth. Right. So really, even though we may be qian-xian at in some respects, okay, to some people, perhaps, but we are still hou-xue, and eventually, as hou-xue, we are learning and cultivating and practicing to become qian-xian, really. Eventually, if we get to the point where, because we are here emulating and learning from the saints and worthies, right? They are qian-xian. And we are learning, and respecting and learning from those with moral virtue, right? If we can be humble, we can do all these things, help sentient beings, right? Then and guide others, support them, then we naturally we become qian-xian. All right, so this is not something that I say I am a qian-xian, then I am. Right? It's based on what we do, okay, whether we do it or not, right? So then ultimately we have to rise above and become basically like the saints and sages and bodhisattvas and Buddhas, so that we can transcend this cycle of rebirth, right? Then that's a true qian-xian. Okay, so yeah, even though in certain aspects, in very limited ways, maybe we can be considered qian-xian, but not completely, not 100%. All right, until we achieve that. Okay. Now, to truly to follow. Okay, sorry. So if we realize, right, that affinity, right, people have their affinity can mature quickly or slowly, right, and people can encounter the Tao earlier or later. And if we truly cultivate and respect everyone, then how can we not respect and listen to or follow those who came before us, received the Tao before us, were promoted before us, or have seniority over us? Okay, so that's all the holy teachers saying that that's not the definition of qian-xian, but it's kind of natural to realize, to view that, well, if someone has been in the Tao a long time, they've been cultivating a long time, then generally, of course, they will have more experience, perhaps more, most likely more knowledge as well, and hopefully more wisdom. And so, it would be natural to kind of, either follow them or learn from them, right? So that's okay. But we have to be careful about following. I want to say following the wrong. We have to understand the principles. Okay, we have to understand what is proper, what is right, so that even though there are those who have come before us and have more experience, but if let's say their views are not proper, right? That could happen. They may not have the proper views, And so we should be careful not to follow that person then, and we shouldn't follow those views. So that's why we have to recognize what is proper, what is improper, what is right, wrong. Although we try to get away from duality, but we do need to know the difference, okay? And that will in order to guide ourselves, so that we don't go the wrong way, right? We have to be very careful. And those who receive the Tao later, right, they need our support and guidance, right? So, basically, if they've received the Tao later than we have, if we have compassion and emulate the Buddha, then how can we not sincerely support and love, the hou-xue, those who come later, right? So truly, to follow qian-xian and guide hou-xue is to learn to let go of its self-attachment, right? Respect the qian-xian and guide the hou-xue, right? And to be compassionate to all those who have an affinity with us, right? As hou-xue, we must be humble and gentle. We must not be arrogant, but ask for guidance from and respectfully learn from the qian-xian. Okay, a lot of people, maybe they don't, they're afraid to ask questions. And so even though they may not, maybe they have, see, this is where it's kind of, it could be a dangerous thing if we don't fully understand the principles correctly, right? But we don't ask questions. We think we know, we think we understand it, but it may not be correct. It may be slightly off, right? But we think we know it, and so we don't ask. Then when we cultivate and practice, we're going to follow obviously our own thinking, our own views, and therefore potentially we can go start deviating and going astray. So that's why it is very important. If there's any kind of question, even minor, what we think is minor or slight, we should definitely try to clear it up in our own minds, okay? Because, right, like the saying says, if a slight deviation in the beginning can lead to a great deviation, later on. So we have to be very careful. Now, so we must be diligent and not lax, right? So definitely we have to put in the effort. Now, we should realize the profundity or, profoundness of the Tao in order to repay the teachers, holy teachers, you can say great virtue, or all the teachers, the patriarchs, holy teachers, predecessors, okay, qian-ren, right? Okay, so, so really, because they are our guides, right? They are guiding us, and hopefully for us not to realize and understand the Tao, right? How profound it is, then it's kind of wasted, their teachings basically. So, and also their virtues, the sacrifices that they've made to be able to bring us the teachings and also give us the guidance. Okay, yeah, and talking about where I just mentioned earlier about the following, right, qian-xian, or who we think may be qian-xian, those who are more senior, we have in the past had seniors who basically they had a slightly different view of things, okay? Having a slightly different view about heaven's mandate. And therefore, it caused a schism, right? A schism, which is just this split within the Tao community, or within the temple, okay? And because they were kind of opposed to this idea of heaven's mandate being passed down from, basically they just believe that it stopped with Lao Qianen, right, the grand predecessor. But anyways, without getting into all the details, but so they had that view, and they were opposed to this heaven's mandate being passed down further. Okay, so they split. They basically split off, and So they're no longer following the qian-xian, really, so or their qian-xian anymore. So this is a case where we have to be careful who we're following. Make sure that you really shouldn't be following a person, right? When you're following a person, that's all based on what? Sentiment, right? Whether it's like, whether I like that person or I get along with that person or that person is good to me, then I follow them. We have to kind of we can't follow people based on that. Okay, we have to use our wisdom, use our knowledge of the principles, and follow the principles, follow the truth. That's ultimately what we need to do. Okay, so because following someone, if they're going down the wrong path and, we go down the wrong path with them, they're not going to save us. Okay, so they can't save us, right? Only the true principles can save us. Okay, so we have to follow, always remember to follow the truth and the true principles. Okay. Okay, as qian-xian, right? So we must be tolerant and courteous and guide the hou-xue. Okay. So yeah, definitely we also need, we have to have patience. So having learned and realized first, right, we are a beacon of light to guide the hou-xue. Learning the true principles, following the good guides, okay, setting an example, right, being a role model, consistent with those above and below. Okay, so this actually we'll get to this later on, but this is, this is basically we have to be consistent as a qian-xian, or any of us really, because we have to be consistent in our dealings with those who like qian-xian and also the hou-xue. Okay, it's so that's above and below, and using virtue to transform others. Right, this is more important. Our virtue, use virtue rather than, we cannot definitely use force to transform others. Right, we can't force people. And so even using words don't necessarily work either. So we have to basically show it, right, through our virtues, through our actions, right, through our conduct. That is the way that we can truly transform others. Okay, because they'll see that and they'll be touched by it rather than words. Anyone can say good words, but doesn't mean anything unless we actually do it. Okay, so now, so those in the higher positions as qian-xian, right, they must cherish, excuse me, and protect hou-xue, but they must not bully or look down on them. So definitely cannot be arrogant, right? We cannot think, oh, I'm a qian-xian. Hey, people should be looking up to me, right? We can't have that kind of attitude, and at the same time, we can't have the attitude of looking down on the hou-xue and say, oh, they don't know anything, right? But so we should kind of be like, well, just like our holy teacher is like a father to all of us, right? All of his disciples, and just like Transcending Master should be kind of like the father or motherly figure to all the hou-xue. So in general, as a qian-xian, we should kind of be like that, or maybe it'd be more like maybe a big brother, big sister, so that kind of that's how we should be when we're treating the hou-xue. So those in lower positions as hou-xue, right, must learn and cultivate sincerely, but must not try to curry favor with qian-xian, right? Curry favor, we're seeking favor, right? So basically here, cannot be, this in Chinese you say 人情道, right? Acting on human sentiment or favoritism. There's bias, right? This is basically, like I said just before, that, oh, if the person is good to me, then I'll be good to that person, right? So this is all very conditional, right? It's based on human sentiment, emotions, that kind of thing, and that is not. We can't do that. We should not do that. Okay, that's that is, it's biased and it's unfair, right? It's not, we don't treat everyone the same. Okay, so definitely, as hou-xue, then, we should definitely not try to, do that, where, maybe, if I flatter the transmitting master, or if I, personally help the transmitting master all the time, trying to seek favor, right? Seek something, benefit in return. We can't do that. That's not a good thing. We cannot really do that. Okay, as a cultivator, that's not what we should be doing. So qian-xian and hou-xue, right? They must be of one heart and mind, dedicated to propagating Tao for heaven, by supporting each other and in harmony to avoid evil trials and make it easier to carry out the holy mission. Okay. Okay. So here, so I'm kind of. You can say it's kind of like reviewing or summarizing these the first two, right? Respecting Buddha and following qian-xian and guiding hou-xue, the first two rules, right? So basically, once we know to respect and follow the Buddha, or the Buddha nature essence, we also should know to follow, or to respect, to follow qian-xian and also guide the hou-xue. So, right, we have basically the essence, right? We talk about the first one as being the essence, and then the second one is a function. Okay, so it follows through from that essence. Okay, and so it only makes sense here. Okay, so basically, because there's this thing. This is in the I guess the what we call the Daozi Zhongzi, I think the aim of Tao, the purpose of Tao. Okay, so Li Ji Ji Li Li Ren and then Ji Da Da Ren. Okay, so basically, because cultivation and practice, it's not just for ourselves, right? Not just for me. I'm cultivating for myself. We are cultivating. We're all brothers and sisters. We're all in the same boat, okay, so to speak, together. We're all in this together to cultivate, to achieve that same goal, right? And so we should help each other, right? There's no real, there really isn't any benefit to just cultivating myself, helping myself, and not helping others, especially other cultivators, right? Because then our achievement will actually be much smaller. Holy Teacher has said that if we are just cultivating for ourselves, then our achievement will be smaller, less than if we are cultivating and helping others. Okay. So this phrase, means basically we establish ourselves and help others to establish, right, themselves. And the second part is to achieve, for us to achieve and to help others to achieve, right? So it's not just doing it for ourselves. Once we're able to establish ourselves in the Tao, in the cultivation, right, in our learning, in the practice, then we can help others do the same. And as we are achieving in this process of cultivation and practice, then we can also help others along the way as well. Okay, so all right, and then the other you can say is there's this thing here. So 尊师重道, okay, and then 承上启下. Okay, so these two you hear a lot too. I've mentioned these before as well. These are also, you can say, rules or rules and guidelines in cultivation. In fact, these things appear as the in the vows. Okay, and when we take the staff member vows, right? They include these. Okay. So, but this is, you can think of it as kind of like the application of the temple rules in the vows for the staff members. Okay, so and why I mentioned this here is because these are very similar to these first two, the respecting the Buddha and then follow the qian-xian and guide the hou-xue, right? So the first one, 尊师重道. I mean, this is actually is broader, okay, and than just the first one. In fact, you can say that this kind of includes, well, both of these, these two together. I've said it in the past too, that this is kind of like, you can say, this kind of refers to, is kind of like the catch-all phrase for all temple rules and regulations and guidelines and the principles, okay, that we follow. Okay, so because actually, if you well, as we go through these 15 rules, you'll see that they many of them fall under these two. Okay, so this is, first one says, well, I guess literally says respect the teachers in the Tao. Okay, so so you can think of this as the essence, and then the second part is the following the protocol above and below. Okay, so this is like a function of that. Now, so yeah, so just like although this kind of, we say I use protocol here, but it's probably a little bit more than that. And then so it's basically kind of includes this too, like follow qian-xian and guide hou-xue. And then just like the first one, respecting Buddha, respecting teachers in the Tao, so it also includes the respecting the Buddha. So because it's kind of hard to, when we say, oh, what is the temple rules and regulations? I mean, rather than listing out 15 of them, and there are others, a few others too, you can just say this 遵师重道承上启下is basically includes most of it. All right. Okay, so now the hou-xue, right? They may be our hou-xue for now, but who knows? Maybe they will progress even faster, right, than we do. I realize that qian-xian and hou-xue, right? They're not mutually exclusive. They are not absolute. They are relative, which means that we can be both, right, qian-xian and hou-xue at the same time. If we take the view that there is always something that we can learn from others, even from those who are less learned than us, or children, right, or even toddlers, then they can be qian-xian, maybe in a very narrow sense. But there's some. In other words, there's something worthy that we can learn from them. Okay, so Confucius, when he said, there's always basically someone that we can learn from. Okay, or there's always something that we can learn from someone else. Right. Now the point is that we should respect all sentient beings because they all have the Buddha nature. Therefore, they all have the potential to become enlightened. Right. This is the same as respecting heaven's mandate. Right. Although we should respect the transmitting master, right, as we do any sentient being, we especially respect the heaven's mandate and responsibility that they have. Right? We can say that respecting heaven's mandate is also an extension of, respecting the Buddha. Okay. Now, so the spirit of cultivation and practice is not just to achieve our own potential, but it is also to help others to achieve their potential. Right? This is an absolute principle. However, in its application, as in the application of any absolute principle, it is based on the conditions, the affinity, and the karma. Right? If the affinity is not there or not mature enough, we are unable to help those people to achieve. Right? The best we can do in this situation is to establish good affinity. Right? Plant a good seed for the future. Okay, so we shouldn't think that, oh, it's now or never. We can't think that way because it is not up to us to decide that, okay, for one. And so we just do our best in this moment that, this is the situation, this is the affinity, this is their karma, this is conditions, this is all we can do right now, right? We can't convince the person, let's say, to receive the Tao, for example, then that's fine. We should just plant a good seed, right? Establish a good karma, an affinity, right? So that hopefully, maybe become friends or whatever, but establish, maintain a good relationship so that maybe in the future, in this life, that they'll have that, their affinity will become more mature and the timing will be right where they can receive the Tao. But it may not even happen in this life. So, but that's okay. At least we plant the right seed. Okay, that's important. We plant that seed. Some people they take a very short-term view and they say, well, it has to be right now or never. Okay, so if you don't do it now, you won't get a chance later on. We can't say that. The chance that's not up. We can't say that. Okay, that's wrong. Okay, so basically, we cannot force the affinity right? Just like we cannot force a seed to germinate and sprout instantly, right? When we want it to. I mean, it just takes time. So on the other hand, we should not become frustrated if we cannot help them at this time, or even worse, right? Burn our bridges with them, right? That basically we establish some kind of a bad karmic affinity. And unfortunately, I've seen this too happen, where someone is brought to the temple to, supposedly to receive the Tao, but they don't know. I mean, they want to understand what they're getting into. And maybe someone is explaining to them, and they say that they're not convinced. They don't want to do it, and then the person gets very frustrated and says some bad things. Say, hey, you're gonna regret this later on if you don't receive the Tao, and you're gonna go to hell. That's a no-no, right? This can never say that. Yeah, and you say that, that's really turning the person away. You're basically preventing them from receiving the Tao ever. Well, I can't say ever, but they're going to have a very bad impression. Okay, so it is important that we have this good impression. Okay, we leave a good impression on them so that in the future they can come back. So that's that good affinity that we have to maintain. All right, so that keep that in mind. Right? So ultimately, we must realize that we are all one, right? There is no me or you, us or them, right? We are one. So that's why we do help each other, right? We are one. That's what the Buddhas, the Bodhisattvas, they realize. There is only one. I mean, not the number one, but we're all one. We're all together. We all. It's just the Buddha nature, okay? The essence is in everyone. And therefore, we really do have to help each other, okay? To cultivate, at least. So it's not just doing it, we can't do it just for ourselves, okay? All right. Okay. All right, so, and then, so basically, respecting Buddha, that's the essence, basically. That is to, right, respect the Buddha nature and also heaven's mandate. And you can, when we talk about essence and function, we sometimes say also internal, external, okay, in this way. But ultimately it's one, okay. So you can't have one without the other. I mean, they go together, right? But this is kind of sometimes how we need to look at things. We can look at it this way. So basically we would respect their virtue, right? That's internal thing, and then we would also respect their teachings and the guidance, right? But that's kind of the external side of things, and so we also sometimes we would also, of course, respect the person or sentient being. Okay, so in terms of Buddha, right? Buddha nature, that's the internal. We respect the external. As a person, of course, we would definitely respect them. And or any sentient being, really, we should respect. So basically, but then we also respect their dignity, right? Their internal, and respect their choices and decisions. That's also very important, right? So people make choices. They decide, whether they want to receive the Tao or whatever. We have to respect that, right? It's again, that's their choice. And this whole thing, we can get into a whole discussion about free will, but basically, why do we have free will? Because we have Buddha nature, okay? So even God, think about this, even Buddhas, okay, Buddhas cannot force people to make a certain choice, okay? So God can't even do that. Why? Because everyone has Buddha nature. Everyone has that piece. You can say Buddha nature is part of God. I mean, it's, so everyone has that ability to make their own choice. Okay, so no one can force that. So if Buddhas can't do it, if God can't force anyone, then who are we to be able to force anyone to do something? Okay, or make a certain choice. All right, that's just being, I would say that's just that's arrogant. Okay, so that's thinking that we can do that. Okay, Now, so the second one, follow qian-xian, guide hou-xue, you can say that's the function, okay? And that's to basically learn from and emulate their virtue, right? Or lead. Oh, okay. And then in terms of the qian-xian, right? And then as far as hou-xue is to lead, we lead them with our virtue, okay? Then we follow their teachings and guidance, right? The qian-xians. And if we are qian-xian, then we give teachings and guidance to the hou-xue. Okay, so this is kind of we're links. We are always this link between the qian-xian and also the hou-xue. Okay, so every one of us, we act in that. We are in that role. Okay, so we are both. So we are always both qian-xian and hou-xue. All right. So that's kind of summarize these first two. Okay, so now the first two then are basically this is the foundation. I said earlier that the first one is the foundation for everything, but the second one, I mean, that's the essence. The second one is one of the functions, you can say, and it's you can say that this is also one of the foundations as well. Okay, for the other rules. All right. Okay, so now we get to the third rule. Okay, so this is斋莊中正. Okay, so maintain dignity and righteousness. All right. So we just mentioned dignity just a little bit earlier, right? So this third rule is to basically maintain dignity and righteousness, which is basically part of virtue, right? So so these rules they're kind of connected, all right? So if we just so when coming to the temple, right? So holy teacher is saying, when we come to the temple, right, and our clothing is neat, our hair is tidy, right, our appearance is dignified, is this called maintaining dignity and righteousness? Okay. The holy teacher is asking, right? If our mind is not clear, is full of desires, and we like to look at beautiful things, we like to smell fragrant aromas, we like to eat good tasting food, we like to listen to pleasant sounds, we like to sleep in a comfortable bed and wear good clothes, we like to think about this and that, full of delusion, can this be considered maintaining dignity and righteousness? Okay, so once again, the holy teacher is getting to the internal aspect, right? It's not the superficial on the outside, right? So if we just if we just cultivate appearances, but not inner virtue, and let our six sense roots be covered in dust or be defiled, right? Then no matter how clean our clothes or dignified our appearance, this cannot be considered as maintaining dignity and righteousness, right? So this is it's not just the outer appearance. Of course, on the outside, we do need to look proper. Okay, we still have to have the proper appearance. But again, we're not leading with the outside. We're leading with the inside, right? The inside is what matters more, and the outside is what follows, right? Just like what we were saying, the first rule, the Buddha nature, the essence that's the lead, and what follows is the function on the outside. Okay, so everything flows from the essence, the internal, right? So if we miss the essence, then the functions and everything else, basically the external stuff, that lacks substance, right? So we have to make sure that we get the essence right. Okay, so in this sense, it's the internal aspect that we have to get right. If we don't get the internal aspect right, then on the outside, it doesn't matter what we try to do. Basically it's fake. Okay, it's fake. Okay, because remember, heaven is looking at our heart and our mind. Okay, so that is what's the most important thing. All right. Okay, so we must. Okay, so therefore, right, maintaining dignity and righteousness is not about appearances, but rather we must not only be solemn in our heart, right, but our six sense roots also must be solemn. In other words, if we can be completely free of distracting thoughts, can be solemn and self-restrained, then that is maintaining dignity and righteousness. So in other words, don't let our six sense, the six senses, right? The sight, sound, taste, hearing, smell, touch, right? All these things, don't, fall into those desires of the senses, okay? Right? So we do say, we have to get rid of, well, the Buddha say, we have to get rid of the emotions and the desires, okay? The desires stemming from these six sense roots. All right, so therefore, it has to be, it has to be clean, it has to be pure. All right, then if we are, solemn, we are self-restrained, right? In that case, then it can be said that we are maintaining dignity and righteousness. Okay, so it's not that easy. So we cannot have those thoughts or desires inside. On the outside, we might look okay, but on the inside, we're still, it's not clean. And so then therefore we are not dignified and righteous. All right. Okay. All right. So therefore, how do we achieve this maintaining, to maintain this dignity and righteousness? So first, we must be upright, upright, proper, correct, right, in order to help others become upright. Okay, so we must restore our bright nature in order to influence and reform others. Right, after revealing our bright nature, we still must uphold propriety. Right, our words must be in accord with the Tao. Conduct must be presentable. Right, to truly be able to influence and motivate Tao Qian. Okay, use the attitude and impressive manner of maintaining dignity and righteousness to bring in and influence others. Right, so it's not based on what we can say to them, how convincing we are in our words. Really is our virtue. Okay, once again, virtue. You can say this dignity, righteousness refers to our virtue, our moral character, all these things, our demeanor, right, our manner. Our conduct. These are the things that really are more important in trying to transform and influence other people. Okay. So, just like if I am here lecturing, right, as I'm doing now, right, but every few minutes I'm saying, hey, you guys aren't listening and learning, right? You guys don't know how to cultivate. You guys don't know anything, right? My superior knowledge is lost on you guys. Right, so what does that say about me, right? Wouldn't you be thinking, who is this arrogant, SOB, right? So, how does he know whether or how I am cultivating, right? Why should I listen to him? Right? Isn't he just a hypocrite? Okay, so where's the respect, right? So this is, if as someone who's supposed to be teaching, guiding others, and we're not showing respect, who's going to follow us, right? Who's going to listen? So this is clearly, it's not applying this first rule, respect the Buddha, which, we have to respect everyone, even respecting those, the hou-xue, respecting those we are trying to guide and teach, okay? And if we don't know how to apply or don't properly apply it, then how can we apply the rest of the rules properly, right? Because that's the essence, that's the core. If we don't do that, if we can't even do that, then the rest of it, even if on appearance we're doing it, just like the dignified appearance, it's all fake, okay? Because there's no substance, no essence there, okay? So if we get the essence wrong, or we are missing the essence, then how can the functions be applied properly, if at all, okay? So, why do we have to upright ourselves first before we can hope to help others become upright? Well, even though I may have the knowledge to teach others, but forms and appearances still do matter, right? Because they should be a reflection of what is inside, our character and our virtue, right? We all make mistakes because we are still hou-xue, even if we are also qian-xian, okay? The question is, first of all, can we accept and admit our mistakes, right? Then the second thing is, are we willing to rectify or upright ourselves? right? So these two are the foundations of improving ourselves and achieving our potential. Right? Sometimes we may accept and admit to our mistakes, but if we are unwilling to change, to rectify ourselves, then we still cannot achieve, right? We must be willing to make the necessary changes. And furthermore, we must have the will and determination to make those changes, right? So those two steps, basically, we have to admit that we make mistakes and then have that will to correct them, okay? So it's just like how Qian-xian, right, Master Qian-xian, Confucius' young disciple, why he is basically considered to be at the same level as Confucius, almost, basically, that he does that. Okay, so any kind of little mistake, he accepts it, he admits it, and he corrects it, and does not repeat that mistake. So he's always very mindful, always very careful, okay, very cautious. I think most of us, we're probably not that cautious, and so perhaps we do make mistakes that could be unintentional. But we really need to, especially when when we are considered to be qian-xian by the hou-xue, right? If we're then we are kind of we're supposed to be a role model, and therefore we definitely have to be very careful, very cautious of our actions, our conduct, our speech, our words, okay, everything that we do, because we should be mindful, be aware that anything that we do, everything that we do, can influence those who are, we are guiding or teaching, and it could be in a bad way, right? Or they might they might feel that we, they no longer, maybe they were looking up to us initially, but then they hear something and it's like, we lose their respect, okay? Once we lose someone's respect, it's, respect, right, there's a saying, respect is earned, right? We have to earn respect. It doesn't come automatically. And, maybe some people, they expect that respect automatically, but it's really, we have to earn it. So it doesn't matter what our position is, how senior we are. We can't demand people, hey, you have to respect me because I'm senior. We have to earn it. And if we don't, if we say all the wrong things, say bad things, say wrong things, do the things we shouldn't do, whatever, then how can we earn the people's respect? Okay, so this is something that we have to reflect on. Okay, always constantly self-reflect. That's very important. All right, so the Holy Teacher says, the Tao is not spoken, but it's manifested, right? How? Basically, just use the bright Buddha nature, manifest dignified conduct, let words and actions be in accord with propriety, right? The mind is not defiled. Intentions and thoughts are not biased or evil, right? 7 emotions and 6 desires do not arise, right? This is maintaining dignity and righteousness. Okay, so basically, the Tao does not speak. Okay, heaven and earth do not speak. Right, it's only through people, through humans, that we can pass on this message of the Tao, to talk about the truth, the principles. Okay, and so, but we have to, we have to use our Buddha nature. We have to use our wisdom in doing that, and not just that. Then we have to manifest it in having dignified conduct. Okay. And follow the proprieties, all the rules and proprieties. Okay, so that this is basically, if we are dignified, right, then we also must respect the dignity of all sentient beings, right? If we are righteous, then we also must not kill to satisfy our selfish desires, right? Because there's actually another explanation about this, because this first character, Zai, right?齋莊中正. Okay, so Zai also means basically the vegetarian, right? So it's like, so another explanation says that this also means that we should be, you have to be vegetarian in order to be dignified and righteous. But yeah, I mean that makes sense too, because besides our own dignity, we have to respect the dignity of others, right? And therefore, animals also have their own dignity. Right? We should not just take their lives lightly, look down upon them, and say as if they're food for us to eat. Okay, that's really looking down. That's looking down on the Buddha. Okay, because they all have Buddha nature, and so that's not respecting the Buddha. Right, so we should restrain and discipline ourselves, our emotions and desires, act with solemnity, right? So be solemn and with dignity, hold to the center, right? The middle way, to be fair and unbiased, right? And uphold Tao principles without compromise, right? Do not be swayed by the currents of society, right? In society, there's you have maybe waves of change, right? Things like now, so maybe depending on the political, situation, but how things are changing in society. We shouldn't always follow that. Okay, sure, majority rules in a democracy, but that doesn't mean that what the majority decides is right or good, right? So in this country, anyways, I guess it's always this battle between I don't know. You have two sides of these issues, and so some people, let's say, they support abortion, and then the others don't support, they're against it, and so it's like whoever seems to be in the majority, then that's what it is. Although right now, so far the Supreme Court supports that there is abortion, but that doesn't necessarily mean it's right. Okay, so because they're not necessarily looking at it from the spiritual point of view. Okay, they're doing it more from a civil view, from a law, civil standpoint. And so that may not necessarily be correct. It doesn't necessarily have the moral. They didn't maybe not consider the morality of it. Okay, so we shouldn't necessarily be swayed by these currents of society. Okay, we must follow the Buddha nature, our conscience, right? The Tao principles, the precepts and the rules, the holy teachings and guidance from qian-xian. Okay. As a qian-xian, or a guide or a leader, right, we must be very cautious, maintain and uphold the Tao or the true principles, establish ourselves and help others become established, guide the hou-xue, and have correct behavior and conduct, right? If there is a deviation, which is, basically not improper or incorrect conduct or whatever, the hou-xue are also following that path, right? So if we are guiding people, right, we should make sure that we are also correct in how we're guiding them, okay? That we are following the true principles and we're not deviating from those. Because if we're deviating from those and then we're guiding those hou-xue to also deviate from those true principles, we have, and then no one ends up returning to heaven, then, well, the leader, the guide, whoever's guiding, has a great sin, created a great sin, right? Because it's leading all those people away from heaven, away from the proper path. So that's why we have to be basically the higher up we are, the more we are, as if we become more like someone that we're leading as a role model, we have to make sure that we are proper, that we are upright, that we do things right, and our views are all correct. Okay, right? So because it is, it's not just the one person, the leader, who falls, but many hou-xue will also fall with them. Right? The leader then has great sins and guilt for leading and guiding others down the wrong path. But actually, the followers, they also have some sins and guilt too for accepting and holding to the same views or beliefs. Right? So that's why we need wisdom. So you have these well, in the past, recently, there hasn't been, I haven't heard any recently, but in the past decades, there have been like these cults, right? These cult figures, like there was one in Texas, right? In David Koresh, right? So these are kind of like, these cult figures are like messianic figures, right? They say, oh yeah, they're like the either like the second coming or whatever of the Christ, or but anyways, but they got things all wrong. And they're leading these people. Of course, these people, they believe them too. I mean, that's that's also a problem. But also then they lead them down the wrong path. And so, but those people, those followers, that's why they do need to have some wisdom to know the difference, to know what's true and not. Now, yeah, in religions perhaps. Because they've kind of lost the essence. They are kind of getting further, over these thousands of years, they've gotten further away from, they deviated from that truth, the original truth. And so it's more likely for these things to happen because no one really now knows within, in the religion circles, really know the real truth, the true of the Tao. Okay, so then it's potential. You can say it's easier for them to be led astray because they don't know. They never heard what the real truth is. Now, even in the Tao, though, we're starting to see some of that too, unfortunately, and probably mostly because people are attached to forms. All right, they're seeking forms. Right? They want to see something. They want to see, so channeling, for example, right? We had the Buddha channeling. Why it's being reduced now is because, well, Holy Teacher and the Buddhas know that people are too attached to the forms. And, well, and also the other thing is that, unfortunately, during this time, we are in the Dharma ending age, that there are also, the channelings may not necessarily be the Buddhas, okay? So that's dangerous, right? So if we get stuck on all the channelings, it's all the Buddhas are speaking to us, teaching us, guiding us, but that's not necessarily true. That's why we have to build up a foundation of the truth, of the true principles, and so that we can distinguish what is true and false later on, okay? Because we are going to encounter, and we have encountered that. Okay, we've seen basically false channelings. People claiming to be Holy Teacher, and unfortunately, they aren't. It's not. And so, but because we are stuck on forms, we show respect, and we're afraid to say that they're not, right? Because we say, they've channeled whatever. I mean, so this is something that. Unfortunately, this is the time of wisdom tests, okay, the wisdom trials in the Tao. We have to really develop our wisdom, to be able to distinguish. And therefore, that's why, in cultivation, we have to let go of attachments and forms, okay? Let go of the forms. Don't be attached. In fact, that's one of the rules, okay? That's one of the rules. Don't be attached to forms, okay? We'll talk about later on. Okay, so all right. So now we're number 4, okay? 循规蹈矩, okay? So observe the rules and proprieties. Okay, so the so-called, according to these rules, okay, so 循规, the first part of it, is to apply the rules and disciplines in the things that we do. So-called abide by the rules, which I guess if you take the second 2 words, is to carry out the rules and proprieties according to our position or role. Okay, so this is called observing the rules and proprieties, right? So actually, so just previously in the previous one, we had mentioned the proprieties as a way to maintain dignity, right? So observing, so this is just not just in the temple, right? But anywhere we are, okay, right? These rules really don't these rules are pretty general, right? They don't specifically say, oh, this is, we just follow these rules in the temple, right? We should be cultivating not just in the temple, right? We are cultivating anywhere we are, everywhere we are. And so the rules apply everywhere because we apply these rules in our cultivation and practice everywhere, anywhere we are, okay, at all times, okay. All right, so so why do we need temple rules? All right. Now, when we come to receive the Tao, what kind of work are we going to do? Right, this holy teacher is asking, right? Work to become saints and Buddhas, right? If we do not follow the rules, then can we become saints and Buddhas, right? So, the rules are there meant to, this is to guide us, basically, to become saints and Buddhas. So if we don't follow the rules, how can we become saints and Buddhas? Okay, so, and if we normally do not act according to our role or position, right, then can we become saints and Buddhas? Right, so acting according to our position is a basic condition for observing the rules and proprieties. Right, now, externally, right, we apply the rules and disciplines to everything we do, and we carry out the rules and proprieties according to our position or role. It's important to know our position or role, right? In this way, we know when or how to speak and act, right? Some of these rules and guidelines are codified or embodied in the regulations and proprieties, but others may be embodied in other rules, so like the 承上启下, to follow the protocol, which I mentioned earlier. Okay, so these things, we have to also know what even though we are all equal in terms of the essence, right? We all have the Buddha nature, but there's still a difference in terms of, right, like if we're qian-xian or hou-xue, we have a specific duty or responsibility or mandate, like a transmitting master maybe, or you have temple hosts, lecturers, staff members, okay, and then just all the other Dao kin. Okay, so these are different roles. Or we're involved in certain specific tasks or responsibilities, then that's a particular role that we play. And so we should know what our role is. Maybe we are leading a little group to study something or to do something, so this is the thing, we wear different hats, right? Different roles all the time. And so we have to know what is proper, to in each of our roles, okay? All right, so now Holy Teacher says, right, if we ignore the rules, how can we become saints and Buddhas, right? If the transmitting master set the rule to be quiet, no talking in the class, right, but people still talk, can this be called observing the rules and the proprieties? If we do not follow the rules set by the transmitting master and only listen to the Buddhas during channeling visitations, then aren't we attached to forms and have a bias, right? So again, talking about this this attachment to forms, we have to, it's not the messenger, right? It's the message. Okay, so that's important. So it doesn't matter who says it. If it's the true principles, if it's the Tao principles, then we should accept that and follow it. Okay, and it doesn't matter who's saying it. Okay, so. Holy Jesus, so no matter how the transmitting master sets the rules, as long as they are reasonable, everyone should follow them. Okay, so sometimes, we think, why should I follow this this rule? The Buddha didn't set this, the Holy Teacher didn't set this rule, right? So, but if it's reasonable, right, it follows so the rules must be in accord with Tao principles. Right, be within reason and not go against the conscience. Okay, so it has to basically meet these criteria, these conditions, then to be reasonable. And then Holy Teacher said that basically everybody can express their views, right, and be heard, right. But we must then decide according to the majority, right. So it shouldn't be one person making a decision in this case. So there should be more people involved in the decision making, and if the majority kind of decides how it should be. Now we may not always agree with the decision, okay, but whatever in this case, now this is, a little bit different from what I was saying earlier about society, to say, oh, the majority kind of rules in a democracy. But here we are talking about, yes, we could still have very widely differing views on things. Basically, mostly, the principle could be, everyone may agree on the principle, but perhaps the interpretation and how it's applied could differ. But in this case, we just have to follow what the majority decides is the way to go about it. And we shouldn't then behind after it's decided, then we should all just follow with it, okay? And kind of continue on, and don't become stuck there on that making that choice, okay, and making that decision. Okay, so what are the rules of the temple within, or the temple that's inside of us? Okay, so originally our nature is good, right? We have a good nature. We already have the conscience. Right? The conscience is the temple rules, basically. That's the internal temple rules. All right. Cultivating and practicing Tao is not to look at appearances, but to look within. Right? So we must follow the external temple rules, but we must pay even more attention to the internal temple rules. Constantly wipe clean the Buddha lamp in the heart and not go against the conscience. Okay, so that's very important. Again, we have to do things with a good or clear conscience. Right? So if it could be some qian-xian, right? A senior might tell us, to do something, but if it's going against our conscience, then ultimately we have to follow our conscience, all right, our good conscience, and then we, that we shouldn't do it, right? So just like Holy Teacher once said that, if the Buddha tells you to go kill someone, are you going to do that? No. I mean, that's so we're not just listening to the Buddha, okay? So it has to be reasonable what they're saying, okay? And ultimately we have to follow our conscience, make sure that we don't go against our conscience in following orders or following instructions, right? Without temple rules, regulations, right, we could lose the spirit of cultivation and practice. We might slack off and potentially go astray. If we don't follow the rules, then we may encounter difficulties in completing matters, right? If we follow the rules, then matters can be consummated or made relatively perfect, wholesome, okay? So during this Dharma ending age, people have lost their virtue and morality. They're doing things against the conscience, and basically they're not even qualified to be human beings in some cases, okay? So we must be careful not to commit sins because we will lose our merits and achievements. Okay, so therefore we must do everything with a clear conscience and put everything into practice, right? And put into practice the spirit of these temple rules, right? Okay, so because of time, we'll stop here and continue next week. If I had said anything wrong or not satisfactory, I asked the Buddhas for forgiveness, and I also asked the transmitting masters and lecturers for their corrections. Thank you.